Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thought Leader Talks. To put it simply, if you're an MSP, you've been tubbed. Our thought leader for the month is a name ubiquitous with mentoring MSPs, Richard Tubb. Richard's blog has been a cornerstone in the MSP industry for over 15 years, with over 3,000 blog posts to help MSP owners. When you have a talk with Richard, you'd understand perfectly well why. He's passionate about helping MSPs grow and scale their business, and he's very generous with sharing his proven insights. All of them based on over 2 decades of solid IT experience, building a hugely successful MSP from the ground up, and as a trusted advisor to hundreds of MSPs and enterprises on small IT business growth. Hi, Richard, and great to meet you.
Thank you, Teresa. Wow, what an introduction. I feel as though you've set the bar for me really high. I better give good value here.
I'm sure you will. So Richard, talking about the MSP market, the MSP market is expected to reach $411 billion in 2027 at a very robust growth of 10.2%. So with such robust growth, it can make it difficult for MSPs to find a niche for themselves. Can you share some pointers for MSPs to better differentiate themselves in a crowded market?
Yeah, that's a really good question to start with, Teresa. So in terms of niching or niching, as our friends in North America would say, the two ones that I typically see in the wider IT industry, so I'm not talking about managed service providers, tend to be geographic. Okay. So that is, you are the only IT company within a certain distance. And if you've got that niche sewn up, brilliant. But in my experience, there's not too many of those who have got an entire geographical market to themselves. The other one tends to be technical. So people are like specialize in SharePoint or Linux or things like that. Okay. But so those are two common ones. But when it comes to managed service providers, here in the UK, I don't see too many MSPs who are niching, who are focusing on a vertical. And I think it's a missed opportunity because in North America and other parts of the world, I do see MSPs that focus on a specific vertical. So it could be financial services or healthcare or something like that. But to the MSPs who don't have a niche at the moment, what I would say is it doesn't necessarily need to be focused on a specific vertical. So you don't have to be going after professional services or healthcare or education, anything like that. What you could niche down on and differentiate yourself is by niching on the type of client that you work with. So let me give you an example. I know of one MSP based out of Los Angeles who works with young creative businesses. Now that's a way to differentiate yourself, isn't it, Teresa? Because if you are going through Google and you're looking for an IT company in the local geography, and you see loads of them that just say, I do IT support in Los Angeles. Which one do you choose? But if you see yourself as a young creative business, and then you find a Google listing that says we work with young and creative businesses, people are going to be more interested in working with you. So, niching as a whole is a very powerful way to grow your IT business, but don't stand on the fact that you have to niche in a vertical. You can niche by working with a type of client. Does that make sense?
Fine-tune your target persona.
Yes, indeed. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's good advice. And what advice would you give emerging MSPs struggling to formulate their sales and marketing strategies, particularly with respect to lead generation?
Oh, another great question. So I will be upfront here. When I started my managed service provider business, I did so because I'm a techie, I'm a geek. I love working with technology and I was good at helping people. But then all of a sudden, what I found was, I needed to sell myself to other people. As the business grew, word of mouth only takes you so far, and then you need to be in sort of sales situations. So the first piece of advice I'd give to any either aspiring MSP or new MSP that's similar to me, where the business owner is perhaps a technician primarily, is invest in sales training. So I did training with an organization called Sandler Sales Training. It's a big investment of time and money, I will say that up front, but it paid dividends for me. Now, even if you are not prepared to invest that time and money, there are brilliant sales trainers and books and mentors that you can find out there. So there's a brilliant book, for instance, that I recommend to people called Selling Technology the Sandler Way.
Okay.
And, you know, it's a fairly short read. You can read it in a couple of hours or whatever. Just gives you some ideas. The point to this is you want a system when you go into a sales meeting. You want to, instead of making it up on the fly, you want to be able to go in there and go, right, I know what I'm going to ask. I know when I'm going to keep quiet. And I know when I'm going to listen. And so you ask the right questions, you listen to the responses, and you respond accordingly to that. So that's the first thing I would say. Now, that's when you've got a sales meeting come through. Before the sales, of course, you've got to attract people who are interested in working with you. Now, this is an area that managed service providers, I'm going to be upfront and honest here, I think they do it really, really badly. I think marketing is something that MSPs neglect. And I would encourage every MSP to put effort into consistent marketing. You can be the best IT company in the world, but if nobody knows about you, what is the point? So marketing, you know, can be as simple as you can be engaging with people on social media. LinkedIn is a gold mine for MSPs trying to find local businesses that they perhaps could work with. My personal approach when I was running my MSP business was to utilize what is now known as content marketing. And that is, you know, blogging. You very kindly mentioned, you know, I've written over 3,000 blog posts. People will probably be sick to death of reading my blog post by now, but that has been written over sort of 15, 20 years as an MSP and as a consultant now. And what blogging did for me, Teresa, was it allowed me to demonstrate my knowledge to other people, so they were aware of my expertise, but it allowed people to learn from me and learn to trust me. So there's an old adage, isn't there, that people do business with people they know, like, and trust. I think, you know, most everyone in the world appreciates that. Blogging and content marketing was a way of demonstrating my expertise, but allowing people to get to know me, hopefully like me, and trust me. And what I found was when I went into sales situations as a result of the content marketing that I did, more than 90% of the job has already been done. When I sat down with them, it was our sale to make. So for anybody, you know, watching this and thinking, well, content marketing, blogging, podcast, videos, all those type of things, I'm not sure it's for me. I'll give a second book recommendation here. I'm a big book reader, as you can see from all the books behind. And the book is called They Ask, You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. Wonderful book. It's nothing at all to do with IT, but there is a ton to learn from it about answering people's questions and building up trust and in your marketing and who you are. So hopefully that gives some ideas. You've got to get people through the door. First of all, and that's where the marketing comes in, content marketing. But then when you go into the sales meeting, have a system.
Right. And especially with digital marketing, I mean, you can, using good content, you can both get your leads and nurture the leads, as you said, you know, so that they're ripe and ready for you when you.
And I will say, for anybody watching this who's thinking, well, I'm not a good writer, I couldn't blog, I don't want to do a podcast, I feel uncomfortable doing video series. You know, what Teresa's doing here is a form of content marketing, isn't it, Teresa?
It is.
I'm hoping that our conversation is valuable and educational for the market. But, you know, you are giving help to people through our conversation there. And, you know, hopefully that raises the profile of Cloud Ally and more people are going to speak to you. So.
It's high value content. So,
yes, you know, indeed.
Yes. Moving on. So, you know, we touched upon it. The aftermath of the pandemic has turned digital transformation from a buzzword to a must-have. So what are some practical ways that MSPs can digitally transform their application stack, business model? And yes, we spoke about the marketing strategy earlier on.
Oh, digital transformation. You're absolutely right. Marketing buzzword. So if anybody is playing buzzword bingo while they're listening to this, well, you can tick that one off.
That's true.
It really used to be a buzzword, didn't it? Now, what I've noticed over the last 18 months, the pandemic, everything, it's gone from being a buzzword to being an actual thing that clients are asking MSPs for.
Right.
And so for anybody unfamiliar with what digital transformation is, if I was to really boil it down, what it is, it's helping clients to do more, to do things faster, better, and cheaper through the use of technology. So most of us as managed service providers have gone into our client sites, had a look around, and we see the way they do things, run their own businesses, and we think, that's probably not very efficient, that's not very optimized. And so digital transformation could be as simple as saying, hey, I noticed that you're still using a written order form when you take calls from a client, and then you fax that order form across to a supplier, and I notice you still do that. Can I speak to you about how we do that? So we've got an online ordering system, and it automatically sends the orders to suppliers, and it cuts back on the amount of time that we spend processing orders, and it also makes sure that the orders are processed more accurately. Is that something that you might be interested in? And so those are the types of conversation that I had. Digital transformation isn't just a buzzword anymore. It's about helping people use technology to do things faster, better, and cheaper. The great news is the business that you've built as an MSP is probably at the cutting edge of what digital transformation is all about. So the business that you've got can serve as a great template for you to have conversations with your clients and say, look, here's how we do things. Do you think that could be helpful to you? And for me, digital transformation is as simple as that. It's always been about helping the client to use technology better. But now with the pandemic and everybody trying to do more with less, it becomes really, really important. I think it's a huge growth area for MSPs.
It's like a lifeboat in these times, right?
Yeah. And let's be honest, Teresa, one of the other things during the pandemic, what we realized was that every business is a technology business.
That's true.
Because everybody needed to work from home, they needed to use email, and all these things. So, it's no longer a case of people saying, oh, we'll stick with how we are. Every business uses technology now, so it's a great opportunity for MSPs.
That's true. And, talking further about our current situation, the remote hybrid workforce is here to stay. So based on your mentoring of MSPs, what are some of the key challenges that MSPs face to survive and grow during this new normal with a remote hybrid workforce? And how would you suggest any suggestions to overcome these challenges?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? So if we rewind to March 2020, when the pandemic first kicked off, and we can laugh about it now, can't we, Teresa? But at the time, it was quite stressful. Now, I spoke to clients, MSPs, and I'm a part of the online community to the Tech Tribe, and we had MSPs saying, look, we're getting clients bombard us saying, can we move to the cloud? Can you enable our people to work from home? Digital transformation, all of these things that we've talked about, they were bombarded by them. So if we, and I call it the great working from home rush, that's what took place last March. But as you rightly say, we've reached a point now where some people are starting to go back into the office, but some people just don't want to. And other businesses have decided, well, we don't need an expensive office. We're going to continue working from home. So we are in a situation now where MSPs have got to deal with not just one site, but multiple sites, hardware, software, users, services distributed across so many different sites, people working from home, from cafes, from offices, all over the place. And the thing I would say to MSPs is, don't try and fight this, embrace it, because it opens up opportunities for you. So one opportunity that I would hugely encourage MSPs to look into, if you've got clients who have got staff still working from home, chances are they are working on consumer grade equipment. So stuff, cheap laptops and home PCs. And Teresa, I had one MSP tell me at the start of this that they had a client get in touch with them with a Windows 95 laptop. Wow. And they said, can you make this work
from the museum?
Yeah. So there's a huge opportunity to speak to the clients who are still working from home to say, hey, if this is going to be a permanent fixture, let's talk to you about business grade equipment. Let's talk to you about business grade laptops. Let's talk to you about good quality chairs for your office. Let's talk about dual monitors. Let's talk about good quality webcams. Also, let's have a conversation about the broadband that you've got at home, because it's probably consumer grade and not really fit for purpose, what we're trying to do with the business. Let's talk about security. Yes. How can we keep staff secure when they're at home? VPNs and secure remote working, things like that. So many opportunities there. But I think MSPs traditionally have looked at working from home as like this thing that people do some of the time. Now, this is a part of everything that you've got to look after. Right. So I think there's a huge amount of opportunity in there. And going back to the distributed workforce as well, have conversation with clients about security, about cloud services, about how you can manage them, because this is where you can add real value to your client's life. They know that they need to do something, but they're not sure what. You can help them go down that path, take the right turns when they need to.
Right. Yeah. And, I was laughing about it because even though it seems just 2 years ago, it actually seems like a decade ago. So much has been disrupted and changed in just such short a time. So it could be a great opportunity. Yes.
It could. And I will say one final thing on the whole WFH, working from home. MSPs, and there's going to be lots of MSPs watching this who can't wait for everybody to go back to the office because they are sick of supporting rubbish equipment at home.
That's true.
But as you've said, Teresa, the world isn't going to just snap back to the way it was. This is the new, people say that if you're playing buzzword bingo, this is the new normal. This is what we talk about. So rather than get frustrated, I want managed service providers to think about how they can lower their cost of support and increase their revenue by helping clients with better working from home options. Because if you've got business grade equipment, if you've got security in place, good cyber security, if you've got the business grade broadband in place, there's going to be less service tickets for you to have to deal with. Which lowers your cost of support, which increases your profits, and your client will be happy. So it's a win-win.
Win-win. That's true. Enable your customers to fit in and thrive in this era.
Yeah, absolutely.
With this pandemic, and it has been on the rise. Like there's been a massive growth in the adoption and popularity of cloud technologies. What tips would you give MSPs keen on strengthening their cloud portfolio and leveraging cloud-based business models, which promise agility, scalability, pay-as-you-go pricing to increase their revenue?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting one. If you, as an MSP watching this today, or an IT company, do not start forging relationships with cloud solution providers. We've got Microsoft, we've got Google, but there's so many others in the market as well. If you don't start building those relationships and offering options to your clients, they will go and make their own decisions, because all it takes now is a smartphone, a credit card, and they're up and running. So they will cut you out of the loop there. And then, as an MSP, you'll end up trying to get all of it to work, which can create headaches for you. So it's much better that build relationships with cloud specialists. So there are partners out there, people you can partner up with who know about Microsoft Azure, who can help you through the M365 landscape, all of these different services, solutions, everything else that's going on out there. Partner up with somebody who can be your support. In the old days, Teresa, when, I've been in this industry a long time, prior to hosted computing, prior to cloud computing, we used to work with distributors who would help us choose the best laptops and the best routers and this, that, and the other. The distribution market has moved on now. So you've got cloud solution providers, cloud distributors who help out. Zix, other people in the market can help out with this type of thing. I would encourage MSPs to build that relationship up, but then realize that where you're going to make the money on cloud computing is not on selling it. Because if you sell an Office 365 license, you make a markup, you make a margin. It's not very much.
Right.
What I would encourage MSPs to be doing is to realize that They have got all the knowledge up here that their clients need to successfully use these cloud services. So if they partner with somebody who can make it easy for them to provide the cloud services, then the MSP can provide the expertise and the support that enables them to make good money, good margin. That is valuable. So when it comes to MSPs doing cloud, don't just sell licenses. Think about how you can package the license to provide a valuable solution to your clients. I hope that makes sense for people watching.
Right. So more of a successful adoption and to optimize their use of the cloud technologies.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because MSPs have got the knowledge. Clients know that they need to move to cloud services, but don't really know what the best avenue to take is. That's where MSPs can help.
That's true. And talking about security, so phishing and social engineering scams have gone up by 400% in Q4 2020. The spike in malware attacks and various breaches, MSP breaches that have made the news, have made cybersecurity a key business focus for MSPs. So, what are some essential security best practices for MSPs that you recommend?
Yeah. So as we are recording this, there has been 2 massive breaches in the MSP industry. We've got SolarWinds, we've got Kaseya, it's all over the news and everywhere else. So right now, MSPs are feeling very, very vulnerable because cyber criminals are targeting MSPs, and they're doing so for a reason, because MSPs are gatekeepers. They hold the keys to the whole kingdom. If you can hack an MSP, you gain access to all of the clients. And so it's scary times. The first thing I would say to MSPs everywhere who are worrying about their cybersecurity side of things is, put in place the basic essential cybersecurity strategies. So I am not teaching anybody here anything they don't already know, but make sure that your clients and your staff are using strong passwords, that you're using password managers, not written down passwords or anything. This sounds obvious, Teresa, but how many of we know people in our industry who use really simple passwords and the same password for everything? It's a really bad idea. The other thing is multi-factor authentication. If you've got a smartphone, you can use MFA, or two-factor authentication, as some people call it. So make sure that you and your clients have got to have a password, a strong password, and a code that's generated to get in. So that's the basics, but we've got to be really careful here. It's not a case of do as I say, but don't do as I do. As MSPs, we have got to be doing that internally.
That's true.
We've got to make sure all of our systems have got 2FA, strong passwords. We're using password managers. This is not a case of we say to the client, you do it, but it's a bit difficult, so we won't bother doing it. You will get caught out. So it's about the culture of the business. Make sure you are doing that first and foremost. And when it comes to what we're seeing at the moment, which is a lot of supply chain attacks, RMM vendors or PSA vendors, the MSP tools that we use getting hacked, and then cyber criminals getting in. Look, I'm going to be really upfront here and say that as managed service providers, we can do the very best due diligence. We can ask the right questions. We can put in place security measures. But at the end of the day, if somebody is targeting a vendor to attack, they will find a way in eventually. So it's inevitable that this is going to happen. So what I would say here, Teresa, to any MSPs watching this is start to investigate cyber security insurance.
Okay.
Now, and this is not just for you as an MSP, but saying to your clients, hey, here's something we can do. Now, lots of MSPs, when I've had this conversation about cybersecurity insurance, have pushed back and said, the clients should need insurance, they've got us. But we can't keep everybody safe. We can't do that. We will do our best for them, but we can't keep them safe. So for anybody watching this who hasn't got cybersecurity insurance for your business, and I'm talking about specialist insurance, I'm not talking about your standard public liability and business indemnity insurance. I want you to go wherever you're watching us in the world, go to a specialized local insurance broker in your geography and say, hey, we need to keep our business, we need to mitigate the risk through insurance. And secondly, we've got a lot of clients who are going to need this insurance as well. can you be our partner and help our clients and ourselves through this? So for MSPs watching, I don't want you to become an insurance specialist yourself.
Right.
Because it opens up a whole load of liability to you and lots of other challenges. But I do want you to build a relationship with an insurance broker who knows the IT market. And I think good cybersecurity practices alongside cybersecurity insurance, then you can sleep easier overnight.
That's true. Another, talking about security a bit more, another significant way to, to blunt the impact of a data breach has been business continuity and disaster recovery planning, a solid BCDR plan. It reduces downtime and it helps your business to get back on track ASAP. So what aspects, in your opinion, would be central to an effective BCDR plan, but tailored for an MSP?
Yeah, great question. So if you'd asked me that question 2 years ago,
right,
I would have said you can find some BCDR software, a cloud hosting provider, and maybe a little box that sits in the corner. You'll back everything up every 15 minutes, half an hour, you'll be good to go. But this little thing called the COVID-19 pandemic happened. And as we mentioned earlier, members of staff are now dotted all over the world, all over the place in different locations. So whilst there is still a need for traditional backup and disaster recovery, with most solutions now being in the cloud, I want MSPs to have a look and see if this service wasn't available, how could we keep our clients keep running? I'll give you a really good, a simple example. Email, calendar, contacts, that type of thing, whether you use Google, Microsoft 365 or another provider. As an MSP, you probably make an assumption that the provider does all the backups for you. And you would probably be right. But when's the last time you tried to recover some data from that service? So I can tell you from experience, we use Google Workspace, which is all backed up. We use it within my team. But if we want to restore an email or we want to track through, look for something specific, if you go to Google and say, look, we want you to restore that email, they'll say, sure, we'll get back to you in a week.
Right.
And you have to wait for them. And it's not much fun at all. So there's an opportunity here for MSPs, again, lower your cost of support, increase your revenue, to go out to clients and talk about email archiving solutions, to talk about SaaS cloud backup solutions. So we use a tool internally, Teresa, that backs up our Google Workspace. And if we need to restore an email or a calendar or a mailbox, anything like that, we can go in and within a few clicks, it's pulled it all out. We don't have to rely on Google. So it speeds up the time to recovery. And when it comes to disaster recovery, I want MSPs to be looking at their clients' software as a service applications and saying, if that provider lost the data, what have we done to mitigate the risk? Here's another way of looking at it. If our client came to us and said, we want to move away from this provider to that provider, how would you help them to do the backup and restore between the two services? So it's still backup and disaster recovery, but it's a slightly different mindset that goes into it. But there's a huge amount of growth for MSPs here in offering their clients software as a service backup solutions. So you're backing up cloud-based services. It seems crazy, but it's necessary.
That's true. And, that's an important point that you raised. Backup is only as good as recovery. So, just having a namesake backup won't get you much when you're struck with data loss, So.
Yeah. Can I throw one other thing in there to do with backup as well? We've got this distributed workforce working all around. Everybody's now got their own router, maybe a network switch, firewall, all of these different things going on. There's an opportunity, I think, for MSPs to provide their clients with a automated backup service for network equipment.
Okay.
So speaking as a techie, as a geek, I used to be an engineer and I used to make changes to firewalls, to switches. And I can tell you that the amount of times that I made a change and then I got distracted and then I went back and I was like, what was the change I made?
Right.
Have I broken anything? Did I click save? And then from a cybersecurity perspective as well, it's like, has somebody else made a change here that I'm not aware of? So I think there's an opportunity, and there's a whole new set of tools out there that enable MSPs to back up configurations on network equipment, track the changes, and restore to previous backups as well if they need to. So just food for thought there, and I think that'll become more important as the MSP industry grows.
That's true. Yeah, and moving, onto cloud backup, the cloud backup market is expected to grow to USD 4.13 billion in 2022. What suggestions would you give MSP seeking to expand their business by tapping into this lucrative market?
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, if you are selling hosted email, cloud-based email, contacts, things like that, don't rely on the manufacturer, on the vendor backup. I want you to be adding a backup service that you can either sell into your clients or you can offer in as part of the managed service bundle. Again, you're going to lower your cost of support. You're going to increase your revenue. Absolutely important. Anything that you would miss if it failed, you need to be backing up. So we've already talked about network configuration. We've talked about email, calendar, contacts. What about your online accounting system the online accounting system that your clients have? Most of them have got a facility in there to make a backup, but it's a manual process.
Right.
So could you be setting reminders? You could set a recurring ticket within your help desk system to say, hey, we need to go in and back up QuickBooks, or we need to go in and back up Xero. Could you script something that goes and does those backups there, or could you find a service that does it? And I'll throw out another big area that I see MSPs overlooking. Traditionally, we've always backed up servers. We don't really bother about workstations so much. But even with cloud services, is there workstations within your client's infrastructure that are critical to the business running? Right. So a good example might be, I know lots of engineering companies who have got an old PC in the corner that runs the payroll software. If that PC dies, none of the staff get paid. That is a critical workstation. Wow. So you should be backing that up so that if the hardware fails, you can spin up a virtual machine and still keep it running. Another example would be salespeople's PCs, or managing director or CEO's PCs.
Right.
We would encourage them, Teresa, not to store files on the computer, to store it in the cloud.
Right.
But we all know that people, they store it on the C drive and in local folders and things. If they lose that hardware, or if that hardware fails, they're going to lose all that equipment. So I would encourage MSPs watching this to have a look at critical workstations that need to be backed up as well.
Run through the business workflows and identify all the weak spots. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, you've put it very concisely there. Thank you.
So moving on to metrics. Metrics can be a guiding light for all organizations, for all of us. What are some of the key metrics that MSP should monitor, and how can they measure some crucial but intangible parameters like customer satisfaction?
Oh, so if we start with customer satisfaction, actually, and then I'll give some of the metrics just to answer the question that way. Customer satisfaction is massively overlooked in the MSP industry, I would suggest. So customer satisfaction is, there's two areas to it. So MSPs really should be on an interaction by interaction basis, asking their clients, how did we do? So that means if you've got a professional services automation tool, you may not have it turned on, but you've probably got an option at the bottom of every ticket that you close to say, hey, how did we do? Now, the response rate to these is incredibly low. So I spoke to one MSP, and it's typically around 1% of people respond to that. Yeah. But there are tools out there that I would encourage people to go and look at that can make it a lot simpler for clients to give feedback. So investigate those tools, because a good response rate you should be looking to get is between 40 and 50%. Wow. Now, if you're watching this and you've never had any response, you're thinking, no way. I can tell you, I speak to MSPs that have 40 to 50% of their response rate. And then what it means is when a ticket comes back and the client's like, that's great, brilliant. But if it comes back and it's not so great, then you need to take manual action, jump on the phone and say, hey, I noticed, is there anything we can do to fix this situation? Right. So that's the first thing, ongoing customer service. And the second one I'd throw out there, if any MSPs watching this are unfamiliar with what's called Net Promoter Score, NPS. Right. So Net Promoter Score is basically a single question that you would ask your clients, not after every ticket, but maybe every 3 months, every 6 months, every month, you decide. But it's basically on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend us to someone else? And what happens is, I've learned this the hard way from running an MSP. If people give you a 9 or a 10, they are fans. You are doing a good job. But if people give you an 8 or a 7, it means, I'm not so sure about it. If they give you below a 7, right, I would be picking the phone up to them and saying, oh, how can we help? All of this for managed service providers is a way of keeping your finger on the pulse of the client's relationship and seeing what is going on there. So, customer satisfaction, CSAT as it's known, a Net Promoter Score. These are two things that you can integrate. We could probably do a whole video just around those, Teresa. So I'll stop there, but I would encourage anybody watching this to go and check it out, because customer satisfaction, hugely important. Now, in terms of KPIs, key performance indicators, it can depend MSP to MSP. Some MSPs are just starting out. Other MSPs are a sales machine and are growing and that. So it really depends on the business as to what key performance indicator, what metric is important to you. But one I would say that all MSPs can keep a track on, and a common one I get asked about, is how many engineers should I have in the business? So a KPI that could be interesting to a lot of businesses is the technician to node ratio. What I mean by that is, how many client endpoints is each technician looking after? So typically, research has shown me, if that figure is between, say, 250 and 400, so if you've got one engineer and they're looking after 250, 400 endpoints, great. If they are looking after more than that, so let's say they're looking after 600, 800, you might be overworking your engineers and they might not be giving the same level of service that they really should do. You will notice that because your customer satisfaction will go down if you're measuring. But if you've got one engineer who's maybe looking after 150 or 200, you probably, I'm not going to say lazy here, but there's probably some room for improvement there, because they could be doing more stuff. So tech to node ratio, I think, is an important one. The other one people ask me about quite often is, like, how many tickets per day should my technicians be looking after? And I think, again, we could talk about this at length, but if it's a first line technician, I mean, help desk and things, if they're looking after 10, 20 tickets per day, that's a decent place to be. Of course, I know people are going to be watching this and they're going to be saying, well, my engineers look after 100, or it's like, if that works for you, great. But I'm just speaking from what I see out in the market as well. And so there's two service desk or service delivery metrics. The other one I want to throw out is a financial metric. And so businesses say to me, well, how can I tell whether I'm doing well or not? So two metrics that you would look into the gross margin. So, and gross margin, you can work out, the revenue that you generate minus the cost of doing business. That's going to be your gross margin calculation there. So gross margin is really important, and that should be going up. But the other one is, if you are a managed service provider, how much in percentage terms of your revenue is recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue, MRR, as we call it in the industry. So my research, I speak to lots of MSPs, big, small, in between. So typically, best in class is around 70%. So if 70% of your revenue is recurring revenue, you're doing a good job, I would say. And of course, that differs depending on what stage of growth you're at. But those are the figures to aim for. So I've thrown out a lot of information there.
Great.
I'm glad this is recorded. People can maybe rewind and play it back. But hopefully, those are some useful metrics for people.
Great metrics. Richard, it's been wonderful talking to you, and you've provided wonderful insights that I'm sure will be very helpful to our MSPs, CSPs, resellers, VARs listening in. Thank you so much, Richard, and I look forward to connecting with you again.
My pleasure. I will say it's been a pleasure talking to you, Teresa. If any of your community wants to continue the conversation with me, I'm really easy to find online. Just go along to my blog, www.tubblog.co.uk. You can find me on social media. Just do a search for Richard Tubb MSP. They will find me.
And you've got great podcast too.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yes, I love Tubb Talk, the podcast for IT consultants. So you can find it all on the blog. So
Thank you so much, Richard.
Thanks, Teresa. My pleasure.
Bye.